11 points is the gap, a game in hand to play. The question, though, is can Arteta find a solution in 3 days? Otherwise, it could grow even larger. This is the Arsenal News Show. Hello and welcome to the Gooner Talk, back again with you guys and girls for another episode of what is the Arsenal News Show, joining you every single morning at 8 a.m. UK time. Thank you, as always, for joining me and making this indeed a part of your morning routines. I hope you've had a good weekend. I know it's not been great footballistically speaking, but I hope everything else besides that have been good for you and that you've been able to escape the trauma and trials and tribulations, is the word, of the sport and put your minds elsewhere. I know it's tough. I know it's tricky, but it's important to take those kind of escapes when they are, I'm afraid, at least presented to us. So yeah, that's what I've got to say about that. Right, let's jump to the chat. Say good morning, Blackshine, Glenn, Matt, Arasilki, Shari, Brad, Tom, Carl, Paul. We've got Mark and Knowledge and Martin and Afsar. Good morning to you all. Thank you so much as always for tuning in. Very much appreciated. Let's just crack on with things. I don't know how long this show is going to be. It's not exactly like there's been a lot of stuff going on the last 24 hours besides that result, of course, that widened the gap. We'll talk about that. I think the main points of discussion will be happening tomorrow and, of course, on Wednesday as well. We start, though, with a narrow defeat for Arsenal's under-18s to Brighton. The big focus, of course, for the under-18s is Friday. You can still get tickets for your if you would like to attend the Emirates to support the under-18s and Anna Birchall and the likes of Max Dowman against Manchester United in the FA Youth Cup quarter-final on Friday. Fortunately, not the best of preparations, but they were without their best player in Max Dowman, of course, who will be available to play, you'd think, on Friday in that Youth Cup game against maybe Chido Obi Martin. I'm not sure. Who's kind of been promoted at this point to the senior squad at Manchester United, but maybe will be used in that FA Youth Cup game. So, yeah, let's wait and see if that turns out to be something that does go down. Moving forward, though, and to that game last night, Liverpool winning 2-0 against Manchester City. It's not 5-1, but it was 2-0 and an impressive victory away from home at the Etihad. The first time they've won at the Etihad for an incredibly long period of time. Man City, just punished, really, without Erling Haaland, of course, who was injured, unable to be in the entire squad whatsoever for this game. Very fortunate, but Liverpool took advantage of that and got the goals that were needed on the day to secure the victory, which sees them move 11 points ahead of Arsenal, having played one game more than the Gunners. That gap can close to 8 points, of course, if Arsenal manage to win their game in hand. Arsenal, of course, playing Nottingham Forest on Wednesday. Really tricky game away from home to get 3 points, considering what's available to Arsenal and considering how Arsenal are playing at the moment. It's incredibly difficult. And I understand that some people are really, finding this very hard. Fizzy says, I just come here to tell you that I'm logging out from anything Arsenal until we get our Arsenal back. I don't know if that's the right approach in terms of voicing it, because we're not really going to get the Arsenal that we've been accustomed to seeing too much of until we get our big key players back. There's just too many missing to expect. Unfortunately, the levels of performances that we've been expecting and have been seeing over the last few years, I'm certainly going to be backing them and supporting them as much as feasibly possible. I'm going to be checking out of social media quite a bit, that's for sure. But the players, the manager, those that remain, those that are still fit, need as much support as we can feasibly give them over these next few weeks as they embark upon trying to finish as high up the table as feasibly possible. And that is, of course, a bit of a problem right now, because we know that the teams behind Arsenal are chasing. Nottingham Forest will close the gap to 3 points if they were to win that game, and Arsenal need to be wary of that. Newcastle moving up to 5th in the table by beating Nottingham Forest yesterday, 4-3 win, but still Nottingham Forest scoring 3 goals at St James's Park is no mean feat. Alexander Isak again, very, very, very impressive in their game. So it's definitely one that we need to be wary of, one we need to look out for, one we need to be cautious of, because there is still plenty of Plenty of football still to play, both above and below Arsenal's position in the table. And Arteta needs to find those solutions. Very quick thing before we go to Arteta, though, is that there have been some replays circling. I don't know if you've been aware of or seen this post the game. Miles Lewis-Skelly was sent off, of course, for a last-man tackle denying a clear goal-scoring opportunity. And I think it was, a denial of a clear goal-scoring opportunity. However, what replays have since shown before that point is a potential kind of shoulder forearm smash on the back of Miles Lewis-Skelly's head from Kudus in those moments. I haven't seen the full clip to see how kind of early this goes on before the foul is made, but I mean it's certainly a foul before whatever action follows this, but it wasn't picked up by VAR at that point. To be honest, I'm not really going to go too in deep on this. Arsenal are already losing by this point. We never looked like scoring with 11 men, let alone 10. So I'm not going to go too hard into it. But it's certainly something that was doing the rounds on Arsenal's socials yesterday. So I wanted to bring it to people's attention just in case they haven't indeed seen it at this point. But it is Arteta who is facing plenty of scrutiny right now and, of course, needs to find the solution and needs to find a way of getting this Arsenal team firing again. And it's going to be very difficult until those players that we have lost come back. Waneri is 17 years of age and has had to step up to Premier League level. Came off, of course, in their game at the weekend against West Ham with fatigue because he's shattered, he's tired. His body is not it's not acclimatized to the rigors of Premier League football. It's just not. And so there is going to be tiredness. There is going to be frustrations. There is going to be the difficulty of playing a full 90 if you are in so many games, in quick succession. We played, I think the full game against Leicester. So the idea of playing that again a week later, it's really hard to expect that of a player so young. And we don't have a recognised striker. And, the Trossard, of course, is our really only senior attacking player left of a starting level quality. It's very, very hard to look at this and see a solution. I think maybe there is an opportunity to switch formations. Maybe I think you could perhaps bring Kieran Tierney in to offer some width on the left-hand side. That could then see Trossard move in maybe more centrally, but still, maybe on a wide left forward position. There's maybe options there, but I'm really struggling to see much in the way of what those solutions are that are going to suddenly transform Arsenal into a team that are capable of beating the third best side in the league this season on Wednesday night away from home with their squad available to them. It's going to be a real challenge. And I'll be very honest with you, I'm not holding out much hope right now. I don't have much optimism about where we are, having lost so many players in such key positions. So it's really, really difficult. It's really, really hard. And it's where Arsenal are right now in a very difficult situation. And that's what Arteta's got to try and find the solutions for. Certainly, we need to see a better performance, though. The performance of the weekend was simply unacceptable at the level that was being produced, decisions that were being made, the mistakes that we were seeing on a regular basis. That needs to be eradicated. They need to play better. But there is obviously only a fair amount of better, I feel, that we can achieve currently, presently. So let's see where we are. Let's see what Wednesday shows, what Wednesday has, and we'll move from there. Right, let's go to part two and some of your thoughts, questions, queries, and theories in part two right after this. Right, let's go to part two. If you've got a question you'd like to throw into the chat box, now is the time to do that. You've got a capital Q available to you. So use that. It really does help those questions stand out as much as possible. I'll do a little bit of scrolling up, of course, as well. I imagine there were some comments going down while we were discussing through some of the stories. Jean says, I didn't manage to watch any Arsenal news yesterday. I just visited to drop a like. And thank you, Jean. I appreciate it. I know a lot of people do that. So thank you for all of you that do. I appreciate that there's times where you're not going to want to watch. You're not going to want to hear what's going on and you want to check out. And I actively encourage you to do that because you need to look after yourselves and think about things that are far more important than football. It's just a game at the end of the day. Family, friends, way more important than this game. So please make sure you look after yourselves in these times of really frustrating periods. Peter Papaz, says, not sure where the fault lies, but between the owners and Arteta, they are both culpable. Look at what Slot has achieved in his first season. I've said this before. I think you swap Arteta and Slot I think Arteta wins the league with Liverpool this season. They've had far more players available to them, obviously. They've been very much more fortunate in what they've faced compared to Arsenal. So I think that it's still credit to Slot for what he's done. But you swap the positions of the two managers, and I have no doubt that Arsenal win the league. That Arteta, wins the league with Liverpool this season. It's just been one of those, unfortunately, for us, and we've had incredibly bad fortune, and still find ourselves second in the table. That's what I get kind of like frustrated about, is that we've had a season of injuries worse than what Liverpool had 2 years ago, where they finished fifth. Got knocked out of tournaments in the fourth round, got to the Champions League last 16 and was knocked out there. And Arsenal, despite having worse luck this season and worse injuries this season, still finds himself second in the table with 12 games to go. But I don't think many people see it that way, and it is what it is. Martin says, our fans' problem is that they expect us to win every game, which is obviously unrealistic. If they don't, then why the head loss every time we drop points? Because that's just, I think that's just society right now. It's the expectation on Arsenal is that we win every game. Arteta certainly said that himself already, that's his aim, to win every single game. But it becomes increasingly difficult, of course, to do that with the players that are missing. Regardless of what business that we could have done, I think we should absolutely have done business in January. I've said that time and time and time again. You lose Saka, you lose Martinelli, you lose Havertz, you lose Jesus, you lose Ben White. For as long as we have, we're going to suffer. There is going to be suffrage, no matter what business you've done. Still, you might not drop as many points, but I think it's incredibly hard to expect us to have even done anything more than we have right now. Chris says, Tom, don't you think Arteta deserves massive credit for this season with everything that Arsenal have gone through, injuries, the PGMOL? Yeah, I think I've just kind of covered that, haven't I, Chris? I do. I know people aren't going to see that. The most vocal certainly aren't going to see it that way, and that's fine. But that's personally how I see it. That's my personal view of it. I don't think any other manager does much better, if even better, than what we've seen so far this season. Carly says, morning, Tom. I feel even following the injuries, it would be a disaster finishing outside of the Champions League spots, considering where we are. Oh, without a doubt, it would be absolutely disastrous. It would be a disaster to finish outside the Champions League spots. If we had players available, would you drop Odegaard? I said this yesterday. I think I would. Yeah, I think I'd take him out the spotlight for a bit. I think he needs to be taken out. But unfortunately, I just don't know who on earth you bring in right now to replace him. I really don't know. What on earth to do with Odegaard. His form is very, very poor. Mark says, Tom, would you rest Saka for the rest of the season with the league now gone? No, because we need to pick up points still, Mark. We need to pick up points. We need to still finish as high up the table as we can. We've still got the Champions League, of course, also, if we can progress in that competition. So, no, I wouldn't rest him, because there's still games that we need to pick up points. And it's not, this is what I mean. People, and this isn't me not having a go at you, Mark, but people think it's a formality that Arsenal will finish in the top four even without Saka and without other players, without Havertz, without Jesus, without others that are currently injured. To assume that, you can't assume that. Premier League is too good. The teams are too good to assume that is going to happen. So it's certainly not something we can just take for granted. King says, not a question, but I just wanted to say thanks for doing the show, even when people are negative and abusive. It's unacceptable that people feel entitled to abuse, but keep on smashing it. Thank you, King. Really appreciate the kind words, mate. I did receive quite a lot of messages yesterday. I don't think I responded to all of them. I checked out of social media. I think I am going to be checking out pretty much moving forwards. Certainly with posting articles and videos there, but very little else. Because it's not conducive to it's not conducive to any kind of anything positive or supportive. Alex says, how can we be bothered to follow Arsenal when the club hasn't bothered to put in an effort to put together a team? It's not bad fortune, it's bad planning. I mean, I disagree, Alex. I agree that we haven't done enough in the market, but I don't get how anyone could argue it's not bad fortune, losing the players. If Liverpool had lost the players that we'd lost correspondingly, they wouldn't be top of the league. Have Liverpool had bad planning? Liverpool only signed Chiesa, like we only signed Sterling. But they've been lucky in that their players have stayed fit. If they lost their Saka in Salah, if they'd lost their Havertz in Gakpo, if they'd lost their Martinelli in Diaz, if they'd lost their Jesus for the rest of the season in Nunez, if they'd lost one of their fullbacks, their starting fullback, Ben White, if they'd lost Trent, is it bad planning? Would it have been bad planning for them, Alex? Because I imagine that we would have been in a position whereby they would have been a very similar scenario. So because the players that they have stayed fit, they're top of the league. But had they had the injury luck that we have had this season, are you telling me that they'd still be top of the league if they'd lost Salah, like we've lost Saka, if they'd lost Diaz, like we've lost Martinelli, if they'd lost Nunez and Gakpo, like we'd lost our players? I don't think so. Benny says Liverpool would have signed players in January. We don't know that. They didn't sign players in the summer either, Benny. So it's interesting that you point that out because, they suffered with absolutely untold injuries, and yet I think people are sitting there and saying that they would have signed players. How do you know that? There's absolutely no evidence to suggest that's the case because they didn't sign anybody in the summer after people felt that they had also challenged for a title and needed to do that again. And all they did was brought in a £12 million Chiesa. So I don't really agree, I'm afraid. I don't agree with that. Jasper, shouldn't Waneri play centrally? We missed that skill set. Who plays on the right is the question. Then if we play Waneri centrally, like how do we do that? How do we play him? Basher says Liverpool have registered 2 registered players. We opted to register 21, only not counting Tierney. Obviously, we do count Tierney. It's 22. Mohammed says he's messaged me on Instagram, apparently off yesterday. I'm very curious, Basher, if you took responsibility for that comment yesterday. I haven't seen any message for the record. Has there been a message? Oh, requests. Let's have a look. Of course, for those wanting context. To be fair to him, he said, yes, I was wrong in saying we had no injuries against Villa. So there you go. I'll read the rest of your message later, Basher. But yes, at least you held your hands up on that one. Amira says, when people say that they want Arsenal back, which version do you think they're looking for? The one in 8th fighting for Europe, or maybe the one with a broken dressing room? I don't know. Amira, I don't know. I think they probably want the one back that we saw over the last 2 seasons, but I'm afraid that one had Saka and Martinelli and Havertz. And, that's what that Arsenal was. Gunnar Falai says it's both. It's bad fortune and bad planning. No one to play instead of Ødegaard, of course. No, I'm not saying that. Again, this is the point, is that it's a combination of the two. My issue is when people say that it's only bad planning. That's what's led us to where we are now. And as we talked about, January was an absolute transfer failure. Like we've talked about it over and over and over again. We are so short. And we knew we were going to be short. We didn't know we were going to be this short in the summer because obviously we had at the start of the season, we had Saka, we had Martinelli, we had Havertz, we had Sterling, we had Jesus, we had Waneri coming through. We had these players, Trossard as well. We knew in January, though, that we didn't have Jesus. We knew in January we didn't have Saka. We knew in January that if we lost anybody else, it was going to be very, very tough. We knew in January that Sterling had not been good enough. And that if we had a Havertz injury, it would be disastrous. And not only did we have a Havertz injury, we lost Martinelli as well after the window closed in that Newcastle game. So we had to act in January. And we didn't. And that is a colossal failure. But to argue that misfortune, that we would still be top of the league somehow without the players that we have lost, even if we'd signed somebody. Even if we signed Watkins in January, I don't think we're top in the league above Liverpool. I don't see that happening. So, yeah, that's where I'm kind of at on that front. And this is what Martin says, to be fair, Tom Jesus got injured on the 12th of January. So we are over a third of the way through, exactly a third of the way through the month. We had 2/3 of January left to sign players, to find a solution. Players like Kolo Muani, players like Alvaro Morata, players like Andre Silva, who left on loan, players like Marco Asensio. Club says Liverpool have managed to be as good as last season with the same group. We are not as good with a similar group. We haven't evolved enough. And that's the lesson. Obelix says, we need some right-footed players, please. Too many left-footers. Only Rice, Partey, Martinelli and Trossard are right-footed in the forward line. Axel says, the one light at the end of the tunnel is our cohesive team, not only the squad, but the management as well. We need to make the right acquirements in the summer, buy the right striker, get Zubamendi. Mohammed says, what was the points difference of Liverpool when Saka got injured? Our issues predates those injuries. I'm not sure. It's a fair question. Arsenal, it was a Palace game, wasn't it? So Palace, Liverpool. Palace, Arsenal. What was the score? Was it 3-1, 4-1, 3-2? Was it 5-1? Absolutely battered them. 21st of December. I don't know what match day that was. Is the only issue with that. I can do a Premier League game week check. Game week, match week. What match week are we in? 26. Next game. I don't know what match day that was. Arsenal, Palace 1, Arsenal 5. Do we have a table, or at least know what match week that was? No, I don't think we do. Oh, hold on. The table was, we were 9. Yeah. Oh, that's up to date. It's not showing us the Premier League table for a minute. I was like, we weren't 11 points behind, that far behind. I don't know how many points behind we were. I can't find it. But it's a good question to ask. This was December 21st. Surely we can work. If I go to Arsenal fixtures on Transfermarkt, that should be able to tell us. Arsenal fixtures by date. This was match day, Palace 5-1. 5-1 Palace. 17. Match day 17. So we need to go to the table. Go match day 17. It was 9. It was 9 points. We were 9 points behind them. Oh, sorry. No, that's not right. It's still coming up with 65. Refresh, please. Match day. What did I say it was? Match day 17. Match day 17. I know this is really enthralling listening for you listeners. I apologize. 17. It's not working. Why is it not working? I don't know why it's not working, but it's not working for me. Even if you type in match day 7, I don't know if it's working for you on yours, if you try it, but every time I click match day 17, it just flashes up the same table again. So I'll look when I get a chance later, but for anybody else that can look, that has the gap, I don't know. GSM says we were 6 points behind. Is that true? I don't know. But if that is the case, I think that proves the point, doesn't it? That the gap was far closer. We lose Saka, the gap has opened up by more points. So I don't think that's entirely surprising then in that case. But I'm going to try and do it on my phone just to see if that helps in any way. Filter. Season match week 17. Filter here. It's going to work. Are you going to work? Filter, please. No. It's not working. But people in the chat box are saying we were 6 points behind Liverpool and we had a game in hand at that point. So there you go. Basher. That's telling, isn't it? We're 6 points of a game in hand. And then, of course, we lose Saka. We lose Jesus. We lose Havertz. We lose Martinelli. And sadly, we've slipped and slipped and slipped and slipped and slipped. After that game against Palace, we won 5-1. We beat Ipswich. We beat Brentford. We then went into January. We drew that game at Brighton. We drew against Villa. And we've lost to West Ham. Are they the only league games we've dropped points in since Palace? So since we lost to since we beat Palace, we've dropped points in 1, 2, 3 league games. That's it. So since losing Saka, we've dropped points in 3 league games. 2 of them were draws, and 1 of them was a defeat. That's quite enlightening, actually. So despite the fact that we lost Saka, I think because of obviously our struggles in the League Cup, losing against Newcastle, and the FA Cup defeat to Manchester United, that's made it feel a lot worse. Liverpool have just kept on winning, really. I know they've drawn a few games, but they've just picked up those key points. Obviously, we have a game in hand now as well, which can close the gap to 9. That's mad to me. Does anyone feel like it should be Liverpool had a game in? Okay, Liverpool had that game in hand. So it's still, obviously, the gap was 6. Liverpool had a game in hand. The gap was smaller than it is now. the gap's not really. The gap's opened by, so they're what, 11 now. We've got the game in hand, so it could be 8. So the difference could be, if say we Arsenal win their game in hand, it's 8-point gap. If they win their game in hand that they had, then it would have been 9. So we've managed to close the gap if those two results go those ways. And there's no guarantees, of course. Arsenal do win that game in hand, but Arsenal, despite losing Saka, despite losing Havertz, despite losing Martinelli, despite losing Jesus, closed the gap to Liverpool, who didn't lose any players. Interesting. Very telling, I think, actually. I think that's really enlightening. Thank you, Mohammed, for bringing that up. That's emboldened my position on that. Wes says, Slot won the Dutch League last season. A good coach on paper, but if you take City and our misfortunes, would you agree Slot has inherited a Goldilocks squad that is basically Klopp? Oh, but Slot's had it. Slot's done a brilliant job. He's taken that team and he's continued on that pathway. He's evolved them slightly as well. I think they're harder to beat, Liverpool. They're not as frenetic in attack, but they are harder to beat. They're more tactically astute, I think, Liverpool this season. But they obviously had the incredible fortunes that us and Manchester City have simply not had. Patrick says, it feels like we can't even be happy with our second place due to how bad United, Spurs and City have been. It's really disappointing. I mean, I think, if anything, that goes to show, like, City, look at Spurs' injury record. Look at City's injuries. They've had, City in particular, obviously, Spurs have had, I think, similar, if not more, injuries than us, and they are well down the table. Chelsea have spent stupid money. You can't say that Chelsea haven't had bad planning. They've gone and spent loads of money, yet they're miles behind us. City have lost Rodri, and then they lost Diaz, who they already had a very high level of depth at centre-half anyway. And they are how many? 6? Was 9, now 6 points behind us. So, again, I personally feel that the way in which this season is spoke about has been incredibly overblown. Incredibly. It's frustrating, it's gutting, it's annoying, but it's incredibly overblown. I feel like the job that's actually been done, people are making it out to be far worse than what the reality of this season has been for us. Anyway, thank you so much, as always, for tuning in. Really appreciate your time. I'm going to head into the office, I think, today. I'm going to get out of my house, get out of this room, get outside, touch some more grass, as they say. Enjoy your Monday. Enjoy your start to the week. I'll be back with you, of course, tomorrow morning, bright and early, 8 a.m., looking ahead. Unless there's a press conference. I'm not 100% sure what time the presser is. Let's see if I've been told yet. Nottingham. Have we been told? Press conference is at 9:30. So no, there won't be a live show tomorrow because I will be driving to that press conference. So I may get to pre-record something for you. Hopefully I do get to sort that out this evening. But yeah, that's what I'll be doing. Have a fantastic day. Enjoy yourself. Stay safe, stay well, stay happy, respectful, and as always, up the Arsenal.